Let's start off by talking about spinning handles. I think spinning handles should be at the front of this video because they're the most multifaceted tool you can possibly use. Here I'm using the Country Crush handle, but there's a lot of other spinning handles out there you can utilize. Here you can see me, even doing heavy rows, I can still utilize that wrist curl at the end of the movement, making everything stronger. Into lat pulls, same thing, you can get your wrist curled, and even here I'm going to isolate them so you can see that you can have that isometric lock while working your wrist curls. Of course, why work lat pulls if we're not going to eventually do pull-ups? One of my favorite variations of the spinning handle pull-ups is to do singles like this, so you can develop a lot of volume in your hands and forearms. Not just about single reps, of course, because we want to get strong. Let's move next into isolating that forearm belly, working on that wrist flexion, doing rows. You can come up with just about any way to do these. These are some of my favorites before moving on to deadlifts. This moves us into the Country Crush deadlift, which is one of the most challenging movements you can do with it. I think the world record is just over 400 pounds, and I'm closing in on it, so you better beware. I do love the loading pin options because you can do heavy wrist curls or light wrist curls like you'll see coming up. There are 20 different muscles that make up the forearm, so it's really important that we attack it from a lot of different angles. 2 of those muscles are in charge of pronating or turning your forearm over. Here you can see me doing that with a pipe, which also involves extensors. You can also wrap a strap around your thumb. That way you can eliminate the extensors part and just really target your pronators. One's down by your wrist and other by your elbow. We also want to make sure we're working our supination. Usually weaker than pronating, but it's still very important that we target both sides of this movement. Here again, you can see me doing it with a pipe and then the strap. You don't want to avoid isometric training, so here I am doing pronated isometric training on both sides. A fun tool to use for pronating and supinating is a kettlebell. Here I am flipping a lighter kettlebell, and then I'll move into pronating heavier bells and then ascending heavy bells. From here we're going to move into outdoor work, because especially during a pandemic you might not have all these tools available. Sledgehammers are very popular tools for working our grip and forearm. You're going to start by seeing me doing rising work, and then it's opposite, and you can just work your way down the sledgehammer to create more difficulty, to increase the weight. And after that we see pronating and supinating all in one, and to create more difficulty, again, you just move down the handle. There's so many different ways to use the sledgehammer. One of my favorite ways is to do sledge walks. You're just walking with your fingers all the way up the hammer. This really puts a lot of blood in your extensors and creates a lot of great endurance. Another fun one is to use both hands together, walking towards the head of the hammer. This is more challenging than you think, but as soon as you get good at it, add some weight or get a heavier hammer. No sledgehammer video would be complete without levers. Levers are a fun trick to have. To work on them, you can just have your hand closer to the hammerhead, and as you get better, work your way all the way down. You need more difficulty, increase the hammer weight. Here's a few more ways you can work on that levering strength and getting weird looks from your neighbors. I'm going to do a completely separate video on how to utilize the steel mace, the Indian club, and the steel club for grip endurance. It's one of my favorite tools to use. This is the mace. Up you'll see the Indian club, and then after that, 45-pound steel club. Towels. Back to working more things at once. Towels are one of the easiest things you can get that work your extensors, your squeezing, and you can work major movers while you're doing it. There is no end to the creativity you can use towels for. Literally any movement that you do in the gym or with weights or at home or cables or with resistance bands, you can add a towel and up the difficulty. I'd like to take this moment to debunk a myth that size equals strength. Some of the people with the strongest grips I've ever met in different sports have all sorts of different sized forearms, so you really have to train for size and strength together, and it will all come together for you. You can see just how multifaceted a towel is when you add it to movements, anywhere from kettlebell curls to deadlifts. Towels are an efficient tool. One thing you do not see in this video is me using grippers. One big novice mistake is to go buy a bunch of grippers instead of utilizing other tools. Grippers are an amazing tool, but if we're going to work our entire forearm, there's a ton more options out there that we should utilize first. And finally, we work on isolation, aka extension and flexion of our wrists. We save this to last because there's a lot of other ways to work this into your training, but depending on your goals, this might be your best method. Here we just have a few different methods of working flexion and extension. Another great tool you haven't seen yet in this video are fat grips, which attach to any barbell or dumbbell. I personally think the best use for fat grips are in wrist flexion, because when your hand is closed, wrist flexion is limited. Then you can add a fat grip, and then your hand is wider open, your fingers are more spread, and you can get greater wrist flexion, as you can see here, and then again with the extreme fat grips. I'm going to close today's video with some push-up variations that work stability in your wrists. Thank you all for watching today's video. Please like, subscribe, and share with your strength community.